1. The funeral begins. It was a gray Thursday morning when the sky seemed to have forgotten the sun. The wind whispered through the trees like a secret dying to be told. The chapel, located just beyond the hills of a quiet Massachusetts town, was unusually full. Emma had always been loved, or so everyone believed. Black umbrellas moved like silent shadows across the wet gravel path leading to the chapel. The air was thick with grief, though a strange tension simmered beneath it, as if someone knew something no one else did. Daniel stood at the altar, hand resting on the mahogany coffin as if to steady himself. His suit was pristine, but his face was a map of sorrow. His eyes, rimmed red, seemed distant, too distant. He clutched a folded piece of paper in one hand, his eulogy, although he had yet to read it aloud. Next to him stood Claire. Dressed in an elegant black coat, her long dark hair pinned up neatly, her face tilted downward as tears slid in silence. No one really knew her. Or rather, everyone thought someone else knew her. She had introduced herself to a few guests as a close friend of the family, but something about her presence didn't sit right. Emma's sister, Lydia, sat in the front row, her jaw tight. She watched Claire with hawk-like precision. She hadn't missed how Claire's hand had brushed Daniel's back in the hallway. Nor had she ignored the faint smirk Claire had tried to mask when someone called Emma the perfect wife. Something was off. And Lydia was not the only one who felt it. 2. The unspoken tension. As the priest began to speak, the guests sat silently, some crying quietly, others fidgeting with tissues or jewelry. The words felt like a formality, sterile and rehearsed. They painted Emma as kind, generous, always smiling. But the more he spoke, the more the room felt strained. Because Emma hadn't been smiling much, lately. Because Emma had grown quiet. Because Emma had told her best friend something 2 weeks before her death. Something she hadn't shared with anyone else. If anything ever happens to me, don't believe it was an accident. Her friend had dismissed it at the time. Emma had sounded exhausted, paranoid, even. But now, as she sat in the third pew, staring at that coffin, those words played like a loop in her mind. The cause of death had been listed as natural causes, cardiac arrest. But Emma was 34. Healthy. No prior medical conditions. And she'd been in the middle of making plans. A trip to Italy. A new art exhibit. Even baby names. Why would her heart just stop? Why now? And why was her husband already standing so close to another woman? 3. The coffin taps. As the priest concluded, he invited Daniel to say a few words. Daniel stepped forward, cleared his throat, and unfolded the paper in his hand. His voice cracked at the beginning, though the words were eloquent, as if written in advance, with care. He spoke about her laugh, her kindness, her love of poetry. Yet every word rang hollow. Claire dabbed her eyes, her body trembling. Her tears seemed sincere, but something about her grief looked too well-timed. As if rehearsed. Then came the moment. As pallbearers gathered to lift the coffin, a strange sound echoed in the chapel. Tap. 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 The entire room froze. It wasn't loud, but unmistakable. 3 deliberate knocks. Coming from inside the coffin. Gasps filled the room. Someone dropped their purse. The pallbearers looked at one another in confusion. The priest paled. Lydia stood up. "What the hell was that?" she whispered, voice shaking. Daniel turned to the priest. It must have been a sound from the wood, coffins creak, don't they?" The priest swallowed. "Sometimes, but that didn't sound like wood." Claire looked down at her feet, silent. Someone from the crowd called out, "Should we open it? Just to check." Daniel snapped, "She's gone. Don't disrespect her memory like that." But his voice cracked, not with grief, but panic. The funeral ended in chaos. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Lydia tried to speak to Daniel afterward, but Claire intercepted, touching his arm and whispering something in his ear. He nodded and left with her. That night, Lydia made a decision. She called the county medical examiner and requested a re-examination. They agreed. And the next morning, Emma's body was taken for a full autopsy, one that wasn't meant to happen. And thank God it did. For, the autopsy begins. Dr. Mitchell had seen a lot over her 25 years as a forensic pathologist. But something about this case unnerved her from the start. The body looked too perfect. No rigor mortis. No lividity in the wrong places. No external injuries. And yet, something felt wrong. Her assistant, Juno, read the chart. Cause of death, cardiac arrest. No history of heart disease. CPR not performed. Time of death estimated at 2:45 a.m. Dr. Mitchell frowned. Where was she found? In her bed. Husband said he woke up and found her cold. Dr. Mitchell raised a brow. What husband sleeps through a sudden cardiac arrest? Juno hesitated. Want me to start vitals and blood work? No, she said. We start with the heart. As she made the Y incision and peeled back the layers of skin and muscle, she expected to find a weak heart. Scar tissue. A burst valve. An embolism. Instead, she found a clean, healthy heart. Too clean. Dr. Mitchell leaned closer. There was a strange residue near the sinoatrial node, the heart's natural pacemaker. Something artificial. She reached for a swab. Juno peered over her shoulder. What is that? I don't know. But it shouldn't be here. Then she saw it, embedded just behind the atrium, barely the size of a fingernail. A tiny device. Not a pacemaker. Not a stent. Something unfamiliar. I want this analyzed. Immediately, Dr. Mitchell said, her voice sharp. Juno nodded, already making the call. By the time the test results returned, everything changed. It was a microelectrical disruptor. A prototype. Military-grade tech designed to simulate cardiac arrest through remote activation. Someone had killed Emma. Not with poison. Not with a gun. But with a weapon that left no trace, unless you knew where to look. Dr. Mitchell picked up her phone and called the police. And halfway across town, Daniel's phone buzzed. He didn't answer. Because Claire had already warned him. They're going to find out, she said. His response? Then we leave. Tonight. But it was already too late. 5. The secret Emma took to her grave. 3 days before her death, Emma had met with a private investigator. She had grown suspicious of Daniel, his late-night phone calls, his new business trips, and most of all, the strange text messages she had found hidden in a locked folder on his laptop. The PI had uncovered the truth in just 48 hours. Daniel was having an affair. With Claire. But it was worse than that. They were also in debt. $220,000 in gambling losses, business failures, and shady loans. Emma's life insurance policy was worth $750,000. The math was simple. Murder, and motive. The PI had tried calling Emma the night she died. She didn't answer. So he called the police the moment he saw her obituary in the paper. And now, the puzzle pieces were falling into place. But what no one knew, not yet, was that Emma had left behind something else. Something the PI found in her art studio, hidden behind a canvas. A USB drive. And on that drive, a video. Emma, sitting at her desk, looking straight into the camera. If you're seeing this, I'm probably dead. But I didn't die by accident. If you're watching this, please, don't let them get away with it. 1. The video. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the rhythmic breathing of the man watching the laptop screen. Detective Alan Ridge leaned forward, elbows on the desk, eyes locked on the image of Emma Carter, speaking directly to the camera from beyond the grave. She wore a gray sweater, minimal makeup, hair pulled into a low ponytail. Her voice was calm, but there was a glint of fear beneath her steady tone. If you're watching this, she began, then something's happened to me. And it wasn't an accident. Alan leaned back slightly, reaching for a notepad. He had heard 100 posthumous messages over his career, but there was something eerily precise about this one. My husband, Daniel, is not who you think he is. And the woman he's with, Claire, isn't just some affair. She's dangerous. They've been lying, scheming, and I believe they plan to kill me. Alan scribbled down motive known before death, premeditated, and underlined it twice. A few months ago, I started noticing strange charges on our accounts. Daniel said they were business-related, but he doesn't work. Not really. Then I found letters. Burned at the edges. He hadn't meant for me to see them. Emma swallowed on camera. Her eyes darted to the door, paranoid, alert. He has debts. Serious ones. And he's been different. Cold. Like I'm already gone. She paused again, then lowered her voice. If they tell you I died in my sleep, I didn't. My heart's fine. Get an autopsy. Please. I left everything you'll need. Just, don't let them smile over my coffin. The screen went black. Alan sat back, the weight of her words sinking in. It wasn't often the dead left instructions. But Emma Carter had. And someone had followed them. Now it was Alan's job to finish what she started. 2. The chase begins. By the time police arrived at Daniel's home later that day, the house was empty. No sign of Daniel. No sign of Claire. Just a half-drunk bottle of red wine, 2 used glasses, and a photo of Emma and Daniel turned face down on the kitchen counter. A neighbor claimed they had seen Claire and Daniel leaving around midnight. Looked like they were in a hurry, she'd said. Car packed up. Didn't even wave goodbye. Lydia was already at the station when Alan returned. You have to find them, she said, her voice shaking with rage. She knew. My sister knew something was going to happen. And you're telling me they just walked away? We've got an APB out, Alan replied. Credit card tracing, license plate recognition, airport alerts. They're not going far. Lydia shook her head. You don't know Claire. She's smart. Manipulative. Emma once said she thought Claire could talk a priest into lying. Alan studied Lydia closely. What else did your sister tell you? Anything that could help us? She said Claire was a chameleon. Always pretending. Always adjusting to who she needed to be. She wasn't just Daniel's mistress, Emma thought she was dangerous. Like, clinical. She even wondered if Claire had done this before. Alan blinked. Before? Lydia nodded. Emma was looking into Claire's past. There was a woman, Maya, something. Her name came up in an old news story Emma flagged. A car accident. No charges. But something didn't sit right. Alan made a mental note. We'll find her. Both of them. 3. The hidden life of Claire. What Lydia didn't know was that Claire Foster was not her real name. Her birth certificate, under the name Clarissa Duval, had been sealed as part of a court case back in 2010. That case involved another suspicious death, her former fiancé, Marcus Hale, who had drowned while kayaking with her on their honeymoon in Oregon. Claire had never been charged. But 2 years later, another man she was romantically involved with died in a house fire. Again, no charges. She moved often. Changed her name frequently. Always fell in with wealthy, older men. And they almost always ended up, gone. Detective Allen's team found 3 such identities tied to her social security number, 2 in Florida, 1 in Colorado. Emma had been right. Claire wasn't just a mistress. She was a pattern. And now she was on the run, again. 4. The message left behind. 2 days later, a black SUV was found abandoned in rural Vermont. Inside were Daniel's coat, Claire's scarf, a crushed cell phone, and a note, handwritten in Emma's stationery. It read, "You can't find us. You won't. And if you try, you'll be next." The handwriting was shaky, mimicking Emma's style, but not matching it perfectly. Forensic analysis confirmed it was Claire's. A fake threat, trying to make it seem like Emma had orchestrated something dark. Another manipulation. But what Claire didn't know was that Emma had mailed something before her death. Not to the police. Not to her sister. But to her old college professor, Dr. Rosalind Hatcher, a retired psychologist who specialized in criminal behavior. Rosalind received the envelope a week later. Inside, letters. Journal entries. Photos of bruises. Screenshots of texts. Copies of financial records. And at the bottom of the stack, a final note. "I know I sound paranoid. But I've read enough of your work to know the signs. I'm not imagining this. If something happens to me, tell the truth. Tell everyone. They'll try to spin it. Don't let them." Rosalind didn't hesitate. She called Allen that night. 5. Daniel breaks. A week into the manhunt, Daniel was caught on a gas station camera in New Hampshire. Claire wasn't with him. He looked thinner, jittery. Paranoid. When police found him sleeping in the back of a rental car 3 towns over, he didn't resist. At first, he denied everything. Claimed Emma had heart issues. Claimed Claire had been with him, but had since vanished. But Allen didn't pressure him. He just pressed play on the laptop screen and showed him the video Emma had made. Daniel's face drained of color. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. "You didn't mean to what?" Allen asked calmly. Daniel stared at the table. "I didn't mean to hurt her. She just wouldn't sign the papers." "What papers?" "The insurance transfer," Daniel mumbled. "Claire said, it would look suspicious if we did it after." There it was. The motive, spoken aloud. "But you did kill her," Allen said. Daniel didn't reply. Instead, he asked for a lawyer. 6. But where is Claire? Even as Daniel was charged with first-degree murder, the bigger threat remained: Claire was still missing. Interpol alerts were issued. Airports monitored. But she was gone. Like smoke. Until a tip came from a small town in Maine. A woman matching Claire's description had checked into a bed and breakfast under the name Eliza Cross. She paid in cash. Spoke little. Disappeared during the night. Left behind only one thing. A book. The Art of Vanishing, a Study of Reinvention, by Dr. Rosalind Hatcher. Inside the book was a note scribbled in the margin. "Smart woman. But I'm smarter." 7. Lydia's vow. At Emma's final memorial service, held 1 month later, Lydia stood at the front of the room, hands trembling, voice steady. "She was more than a victim," she said. "She was brave. She knew. She warned us. And now we owe her justice." Detective Allen sat near the back, nodding slightly. He wasn't done. Claire was still out there. But she had left a trail. And Emma, even in death, had left breadcrumbs. 1. The aftermath at the cabin. The coastal cabin was dead silent by the time Lydia and Detective Allen pushed through the broken door. The kettle on the stove hissed its final breath of steam. A cup of untouched tea sat on the windowsill. A single chair faced the ocean. But Claire was gone. Again. Allen cursed under his breath. 10 minutes. That's how close we were. Lydia didn't speak. She walked to the table, where a half-burned piece of paper had been pinned under a rock. She picked it up carefully. Most of the words were illegible, except for one line. She wasn't the first. And she won't be the last. Lydia turned to Allen. She's going to do it again. Allen nodded grimly. Unless we find her first. But what neither of them knew was that Claire had already left her next breadcrumb. In the cabin's bathroom, behind the medicine cabinet mirror, something was taped to the wall. A photo. Emma. With a red X drawn across her face. And below her, 2 more women. Both alive. For now. 2, Claire on the run. Claire pressed her forehead to the bus window as the gray streets of Portland blurred past her. Rain smeared against the glass, mimicking the fog in her mind. She had been on the move for days, changing towns, names, even the way she walked. But the pressure in her chest wouldn't ease. Not because of guilt, Claire never wasted energy on that, but because of what Emma had left behind. The video. The letters. The damn USB drive. Emma had been smarter than she looked. Claire had underestimated her. Now, with Daniel behind bars, Claire was alone. But not without allies. At the next station, a man boarded and sat beside her. He was in his 50s, wearing a worn wool coat, smelling faintly of pipe tobacco. He didn't speak right away. Then, without turning his head, he said quietly, "You made a mess." Claire didn't flinch. "You said no one would suspect anything." He glanced at her, eyes cold. "They weren't supposed to find the device. You didn't tell me it could be traced. You weren't supposed to open the heart." Claire exhaled slowly, calculating. "You're going to help me fix this." The man gave a thin smile. "Why would I?" She turned her head, eyes narrowed. "Because if I go down, you go down. And I've got copies. All of it." He didn't smile anymore. Instead, he said, "There's one option left. The Foundation." Claire's stomach knotted. She hadn't heard that name in years. 3. The Foundation. Back in Massachusetts, Allen was sifting through Emma's handwritten journals. The scent of ink and lavender clung to every page. One entry stood out. "Claire talks in her sleep." Once she said something about the Foundation. Like it was an organization, or a code word. When I asked her later, she denied it. Said I was dreaming. But she looked scared. I think it's where she learned to lie the way she does. Allen frowned. He called Dr. Rosalind Hatcher, Emma's old professor and the behavioral analyst who'd been helping with the case. "Ever heard of the Foundation?" he asked. There was silence on the other end. Then, I hoped I'd never hear that name again. Allen leaned in. "Tell me everything." Rosalind's voice was brittle, like old paper cracking. In the late 90s, there was a group, privately funded, elite-level behaviorists, psychologists, ex-military. They studied manipulation, identity construction, emotional rewiring. Their goal was to create perfect infiltrators for corporate espionage. It was all off the books. They called it the Foundation. When it got shut down in 2004, some of the subjects just vanished. Subjects? Children. Orphans. Runaways. Some were recruited. Some were stolen. They were trained to charm, to lie, to mimic emotions. Claire Foster, or whoever she really is, might have been one of them. Alan sat in silence. Everything Emma had feared, everything Lydia had suspected, it wasn't just about jealousy or greed. It was much, much darker. 4. The second name. Lydia was in her late sister's studio, sorting through a forgotten box when she found the envelope. Inside were printed screenshots of 2 women's Facebook profiles. One was Emma. The second, a woman named Melissa Trent. A life coach. Recently engaged. Based in New York. Attached was a handwritten note. Same pattern. Same man. Different name. She found another Daniel. Lydia's heart dropped. She Googled Melissa's name. An obituary popped up. Melissa Trent. Died of cardiac arrest. Age 31. Cause of death? Heart failure in sleep. Just like Emma. And Claire had been at her engagement party. Lydia immediately called Alan. She's done this before. I found her next victim. Alan's voice came sharp. You mean next target? Or past? We're not dealing with one murder anymore. 5. The trap. The decision was made. They would leak a story to the media. New evidence in Emma Carter murder connects second woman, Melissa Trent, FBI investigating links. It would do 2 things. Signal to Claire that they knew about Melissa. Flush her out. Sure enough, 2 days later, a CCTV camera in New Jersey caught someone matching Claire's new identity near a gas station. The photo went viral. But that wasn't the real lead. What got Alan's attention was an encrypted message sent to a dark web forum the same night. Username, Mer0rface. Message, if they're watching the front, use the back door. He forwarded it to cybercrime analysts. The IP pinged from Savannah, Georgia. Claire was slipping. Or baiting. 6. Return to the beginning. At the Carter home, Lydia found herself walking through the empty living room, eyes lingering on the family portraits, Emma, smiling. Oblivious. I'm going to end this for you, she whispered. That night, she had a dream, Emma standing by the fireplace, holding a photo. You missed something, Emma said. Lydia jolted awake. Something Emma had said weeks before her death returned to her memory. Claire always avoided mirrors. Said they showed too much. She rushed back to Emma's studio. In the far corner, a large standing mirror, decorative, untouched, had been turned to face the wall. Lydia flipped it over. Behind the mirror was a cut in the drywall. Inside, another USB. She called Alan instantly. 7. The final file. On the USB was a voice file. A recording. Emma's voice, scared but clear. Claire told me once, in a moment of honesty, that she wasn't the first. That the foundation had more girls. That she was just a prototype. They teach us how to be anyone, she said. But sometimes I don't know who I am anymore. She cried that night. It was the only time I believed she might have a soul. Lydia listened to it 3 times before whispering. She's broken. Alan didn't agree. She's lethal. 8. Claire's message. Then, just as things began to quiet, a package arrived at Lydia's door. No return address. Inside, a small mirror. Cracked. And written across it in red lipstick. You want to catch me? Look in the mirror. 1. The message. The mirror felt heavier than it should have. Lydia stared at the red writing, her hands trembling. You want to catch me? Look in the mirror. It was a dare. A taunt. But worse, it was personal. Claire was watching, and not just watching, she was enjoying this. Lydia turned the glass over. On the back was something new, 4 carved initials. MDLC. She took a photo and sent it immediately to Detective Allen, then called him. "I got something." Another message. "She's mocking me. But this isn't just a message. She wants me to find something." Allen's voice was steady but urgent. "She always does. She leaves these clues. Breadcrumbs. She wants to be found, by someone who understands her. And that's you." Lydia blinked. "Why me?" "Because you're the only one who's ever seen her behind the act." Silence. Then Lydia whispered, "MDLC." Allen was already typing. "We'll dig. You stay put." But Claire didn't want Lydia to stay put. She wanted her to follow. 2. Claire's underground trail. Hours later, Lydia got another message. This time through a burner email, disguised as spam. Subject: Your appointment confirmation. Message: You've booked. The Looking Glass Gallery, Boston. Time: 8 p.m. One night only. Entry: Show them your reflection. Lydia stared at the email. It was her. It had always been her. She called Allen again. She wants to meet. Tonight. Boston. He didn't try to talk her out of it. Not anymore. They both knew, Claire wouldn't be caught by uniforms and badges. She needed an audience. Someone who meant something to her past. And in this twisted game, Lydia had become that person. 3. The Gallery. Boston's South End. A converted warehouse gallery with mirrored walls, low lighting, and eerie installations. As Lydia walked in, the doorman nodded and said, "You're expected." He handed her a mask. Black lace. Eyes only. Inside, the gallery was empty. Completely. No guests. No music. Just mirrors and a single chair in the center of the space. On the chair, a woman. Claire. She wore a long black coat and no makeup. Her hair was shorter now. Eyes tired. But unmistakably her. "Hello, Lydia," she said softly. Lydia stepped closer but kept her hands in her pockets, where her phone was recording everything. "I came alone," Lydia said. "I know." They stared at each other in silence for a moment. Then Claire stood up. "They think I'm evil. A monster. And maybe I am. But do you want to know where monsters come from?" Lydia didn't answer. Claire turned toward a mirror. "This is where they start," she whispered. "When someone breaks you and teaches you to pretend it didn't hurt." Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a USB. "I want to end this," she said. Lydia frowned. "Then why run?" "Because they're still out there," Claire said. "And they're worse than me." 4. The Foundation Files. The USB was labeled MDLC, just like the initials on the back of the mirror. Inside were hundreds of files. Case studies. Psychological evaluations. Experimental conditioning reports. Photos of children, some in hospital gowns, some in locked rooms. And documents bearing the header, the Mirror Development and Learning Center. Claire had been their subject. And so had others. She had escaped in 2008. Faked her identity. But the training never left. It was why she could read people, mimic emotions, manipulate trust. It was designed that way. And now, the program was starting again, under a new name. Project Aurora. The files pointed to a shell company based in Nevada. But the money trail? It started in Switzerland. Claire had tried to stop them once. Failed. Emma had uncovered too much and became a risk. Now, Lydia knew everything. 5. The Decision. Lydia sat at the edge of the gallery chair, heart pounding. "So what now?" she asked. Claire stared at her, unreadable. You expose them. You use what's on that drive. If they disappear you, make noise. Make hell. What about you? Claire laughed bitterly. They'd never let me live if I stay. I'm the whistleblower and the weapon. I could protect you. No, Lydia. You'd try. But they'd still get to me. And you. This isn't a case anymore. It's a network. Government adjacent. Funded by defense contracts and buried deep. Tears sprang to Lydia's eyes. You killed my sister. Claire's face hardened. I did. But not the way you think. What does that mean? She was poisoned. But not by me. I warned her. She wouldn't stop digging. She found the old names. One of them panicked. He had access. He sent someone. Lydia's breath caught. Then who? She died because she tried to save me. 6. The Vanishing. When Alan arrived, the gallery was empty again. Just mirrors. And Lydia. She handed him the USB. She gave it to me. Everything. But she's gone. No sign. Lydia shook her head. Only this. She held up a photo. It was the last thing Claire had left behind. It showed her, standing outside a hospital in 1998. 12 years old. Holding hands with a boy. On the back, a note. He remembers. And he's next. 7. Back at the station. Alan watched the footage again and again, Claire's quiet voice, Emma's warnings, the gallery meeting. His team decrypted more files. Project Aurora was live. Recruiting again. And in one file labeled Candidates, Q3 Screening, a familiar name appeared. L. Carter. Lydia's daughter. 7 years old. Alan grabbed his phone, heart racing. She wasn't done with Lydia. Not yet. 1. A mother's nightmare. Lydia Carter sat frozen in her living room at 3 a.m., the USB drive clutched tight in her hand. The police station lights glowed like an alarm through her curtains. Her mind raced. The files she'd reviewed confirmed it. Project Aurora was no isolated experiment. It was a systematic program, globally financed by shadowy defense firms and covert agencies. And it was still active. But seeing her daughter's name, L. Carter, born 2018, listed under Q3 Screening, shook her to her core. She had to protect her child. Lydia stumbled into her bedroom, where her daughter, Mia, slept peacefully. She resisted the urge to hold her tight, afraid she'd wake her. Instead, Lydia set her phone to record. If I don't come back, she whispered. Protect her. My name is Lydia Carter. This is bigger than me. 2. Alan's warning. Across town, Detective Alan Ridge paced the precinct's darkened conference room. Dr. Rosalind Hatcher joined him via screen. They want children like Claire, Rosalind said. Pick them young, mold them. By 7, behaviors can be rewired. Identity erased. Project Aurora is grooming a new generation. Alan pinched his nose. They've known about Mia since Emma downloaded those files. Rosalind nodded. Aurora operates through shell schools, community programs, foster placements, anywhere a kid can be broken in slowly. Alan slammed his fist down. We need to get her out. Now. They formulated a plan, covert relocation. Select a safe house, tighten police protection, but do it quietly. Aurora watched everything. 3. The abduction plan revealed. By dawn, Lydia met Alan in a secure facility, an old government warehouse repurposed for witness protection. Mia wasn't there yet. Alan opened more decrypted files. They've designated Mia as essential. They believe breaking her could control you. Lydia trembled. They won't get her. Alan handed her a photo. It showed a boardroom in Geneva. 4 figures, hazy behind blurred glass. One wore a lab coat. One had the same initials, MDLC. The same as the mirror clue. Mirror Development and Learning Center. Geneva Lab? They've got clinics worldwide, Alan explained. Lydia's voice cracked. So Claire wasn't just a victim. She was a product. Alan nodded grimly. A perfect sleeper agent. And Mia is a target not for what she's done, but who she is. They finalized the exfil plan. Mia would be moved to a safe zone undercover. Lydia would stay behind to draw attention, but only enough to keep Aurora distracted. 4. The night of the move. That evening, the skies opened up, heavy rain pounding the warehouse's corrugated roof. Mia, pretending to play with stuffed animals, followed a handler disguised as a sitter. Her small hand wrapped around Lydia's finger just long enough to give comfort. Lydia forced a smile as Mia was escorted into a bulletproof van marked as a social services vehicle. Be brave, Lydia whispered, kissing her forehead. Mia nodded, her wide eyes solemn. The moment the van pulled away, Lydia allowed herself to cry. 5. The countdown begins. Lydia returned to her SUV parked outside to find Alan waiting. Snowflake-sized raindrops clung to the windshield. He didn't speak. Instead, he handed her earphones. Listen. Lydia pressed play. A man's gravelly voice. Incomplete subjects lose value. Continue phase 2 as planned. Subject L.C to be retrieved. If retrieval fails, subject MDLC to assess damages. Lydia froze. Phase 2? Subjects? Alan looked at her. Claire is MDLC. They still monitor her. They still assess her. Lydia closed her eyes. Now we know they're gunning for Mia, and maybe Claire. If we don't move fast, we lose them both. 6. Hunting the hunters. For the next 48 hours, Alan and Lydia raced against time. Technicians traced IPs on encrypted traffic spikes, securing timestamps linking Aurora activity to Boston and Geneva. Rosalind contacted an old colleague at CERN, asking for traffic analysis across mirror research, unlawful, but necessary. Lydia visited Emma's college records, looking for partners or friends Claire might contact. Alan coordinated border watch. But minutes felt like hours. 7. Claire's shadow. Meanwhile, high above the Alps, Claire waited at a deserted airstrip, wearing aviators and a trench coat. She slid a SIM card into her burner phone and triggered an encrypted message. Take containment. Phase 2 compromised. Subject MDLC is on the move. Mia. Option, extraction. She looked at the midnight sky. The moon was full, bright as the ice-covered runway. She sighed. For the first time, she was scared, not of capture, but failure. 8. The raid. Just before midnight, Alan led a strike team to a safe house rumored to be Aurora's Boston front. They breached it, silence, breezy curtains, empty cots. But they found files, research logs, contact lists, payrolls. And then a scratched mirror with red initials. MDLC. They had proof. Alan knew Mia was still safe, for now. 9. Revelation in Europe. Meanwhile, Lydia opened a video call from Rosalind. The CERN traffic data, fragmented, but enough. Aurora's Geneva lab is mirrored across a synthetic language line, a signal they call Aurora 22. The database shows 37 agents, born between 2005 to 2015. Lydia paled. How many are being prepped now? 21 down. 16 active candidates. One of them is your daughter. She gasped. Rosalind continued, her voice steady. But there's a pattern. Aurora archives show it relies on mothers. Most of the time, the mothers are collateral. Lydia clenched her fists. Meaning? You got her out, but they don't need Mia. They need you. They need to break you. 10. Claire's return. Just as Lena hung up, her ring buzzed. A message from an anonymous number. I have her. Lydia closed her eyes. Mia. Alan grabbed the phone. Where? Cour, yesterday. Bring mirror. They stared at it, an ultimatum. 11. Mirror showdown. At Boston's old customs house, a crowd had gathered, rain-drenched, umbrellas up. Inside, a massive mirrored installation gleamed under lights. Lydia stepped in, Alan at her side, wearing jackets and holding phones ready to record. The mirrored structure was made of reflective glass panes. Fragmented images of their faces milled inside. A hush. Then a voice, Claire's. You made it. Lydia pushed forward. The voice shifted position in the mirror labyrinth. Come find me. They followed reflections. Suddenly, a panel slid open, Claire stepped out. No coat now, just a faded t-shirt and jeans. Her eyes glinted with quiet strength. Behind her, a small cage. In it, Mia, bound with ribbons. She looked at Lydia and raised a trembling hand. Lydia cried out. Claire stepped forward. You have the mirror. Lydia held up the cracked glass. Where's my daughter? Behind you. They turned to see Mia, but, so was Claire's mother's face in another pane. Lydia's stomach twisted. Claire said softly, Project Aurora tested identity removal on thousands. They blame themselves for mistakes. But I will fix this. Alan moved to grab Claire. She held up a hand. Don't, detective. Or she dies. Mia whimpered. Claire looked at Lydia. I never lied when I said I could mimic emotions. But I've never felt like this. This, she said, pointing to Mia, is what they took from me. And now it's yours. Lydia approached, tears streaming. Give her to me. Claire hesitated, tears glimmering. But the panel slid open behind her, masked men in dark suits. You have one choice, Claire said. Give me the daughter. Or stay and watch as they take you. The men crept forward. 12. The tipping point. Rain came in sheets as the crowd gasped. Security rushed the building. Alan whispered, On 3, I pull them both. Lydia shook her head. She looked at Claire, fragile, trembling. Claire realized it, she couldn't hurt them. Tears fell down her cheeks. I can't, she mouthed. In that moment, a sniper shot rang out, tiny pings on the metal mirrors. The masked men dropped. Silhouetted by rain, Claire pushed Lydia and Mia behind her. Alan responded, pulling out his weapon. Claire crouched. Go. Lydia scooped Mia into her arms. Claire grabbed Lydia's hand, tears mixing in. We end this, Claire said. Lydia hesitated. Then they ran, past shattered mirrors, past masked men on the floor, past rain and reflection. 13. Aftermath. At dawn, they were at the warehouse again, Lydia, Mia, Alan, and Claire, shivering and soaked. Alan looked Claire in the eyes. What now? Claire met her gaze. I have contacts. Old friends from before they broke me. We're going to take Aurora apart. Lydia's arms around Mia tightened. This isn't over, she said softly. But you saved her. Claire nodded, eyes red. Now we make them pay. Alan sighed. We'll help. But from here on out, It's war. Not whispers. 14. A new alliance. In the warehouse's empty office, Claire opened a battered suitcase. Inside, the rest of the Aurora files. Satellite locations. Funding sources. Links to Shell Core. She handed them to Alan and Lydia. Outside, rain-slicked concrete glistened. Claire closed her eyes, exhaled. Project Aurora ends with me. Lydia touched Claire's arm. We'll make sure of it. And somewhere in the chatter of arriving SWAT vehicles and distant sirens, their plan began, a multi-front assault on a global clandestine network.